Krishna 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 Hare Krishna 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 Krishna. Hare Vrajagacharya Stotra Sattva Sri Samadhi Divine Grace Shri Bhakti Charanarvind Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavim Ki ISKCON Bhakti Varnasrama Divine Grace of Prabhupada Naimiṣāraṇya Srila Haridas Thakur Samaveta Bhakti Harinam Sankirtan Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Jainitai Gauda Primanandi. All glories to be assembled devotees, all glories to be assembled devotees, all glories to be assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Takshurumilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Kadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Bhagavatam Dikam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Paritana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Galita Shri Vishakanditamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Veshvanushute Deve Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakakryugasya kripa sindhubhyaiva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Narayanam namaskritya Dharam chaiva narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Todayam Matiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayana Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayesha badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering a service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within our heart becomes destroyed practically at the middle, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, and becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahmasamhitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swastaya Namaha. The Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God as Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare
Krishna Krishna Hare
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 Rama Hare Rama
Hare Rama Hare Rama
Rama Rama Hare Hare
Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Surabhyaya Namaha
Om Surabhyaya Namaha.
Om Surabhyaya Namaha
Om Surabhyaya Namaha.
Om Surabhyaya Namaha
Om Surabhyaya Namaha.
Karoti Vasaram Tvagum Langayate Girim Yat Kripat Maham Bande Sri Gurum Gunataram Yat Kripat Maham Bande Sri Gurum Gunataram. Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone to our Bhagavatam class. We continue to read from Canto number 1, chapter number 1. And in the last few days we have completed the first 3 most important verses of this first chapter. And today we look at text number 4. Naimiṣāraṇya. In the forest known as Naimiṣāraṇya.
Naimiṣāraṇya.
Naimiṣāraṇya. The spot which is especially a favorite of Vishnu, who does not close his eyelids. Ishayaha, sages. Shonaka Adayaha, headed by the sage Shonaka. Shatrum, sacrifice. Svargaya, the Lord who is glorified in heaven. Lokaya, and for the devotees who are always in touch with the Lord. Sahasra, 1,000. Samam, years. Asata, performed. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Once in a holy place in the forest of Naimiṣāraṇya, great sages headed by the sage Shonaka assembled to perform a great 1,000-year sacrifice for the satisfaction of the Lord and His devotees. Can you repeat after me? Once in a holy place, in the forest of Naimiṣāraṇya, great sages, headed by the sage Shonaka, assembled to perform a great 1,000-year sacrifice for the satisfaction of the Lord and His devotees. Purport. The prelude of the Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken in the previous 3 shlokas. Now the main topic of this great literature is being presented. Srimad Bhagavatam, after its first recitation by Srila Shukadeva Goswami, was repeated for the second time at Naimiṣāraṇya. Srila Prabhupada called Hyderabad farm Naimiṣāraṇya farm. Yeah. In the Vayavya Tantra, or Vayavya Tantra, it is said that Brahma, the engineer of this particular universe, contemplated a great wheel which would enclose the universe. The hub of this great circle was fixed at a particular place known as Naimiṣāraṇya. Similarly, there is another reference to the forest of Naimiṣāraṇya in the Varaha Purana, where it is stated that by performance of sacrifice at this place, the strength of demoniac people is curtailed. Thus, Brahmanas prefer Naimiṣāraṇya for such sacrificial performances. The devotees of Lord Vishnu offer all kinds of sacrifices for his pleasure. The devotees are always attached to the service of the Lord, whereas fallen souls are attached to the pleasures of material existence. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that anything performed in the material world for any reason other than for the pleasure of Lord Vishnu causes further bondage for the performer. It is enjoined, therefore, that all acts must be performed sacrificially for the satisfaction of Vishnu and his devotees. This will bring everyone peace and prosperity. The great sages are always anxious to do good to the people in general. And as such, the sages, headed by Shonaka and others, assembled at this holy place of Naimiṣāraṇya with a program of performing a great and continuous chain of sacrificial ceremonies. Forgetful men do not know the right path for peace and prosperity. However, the sages know it well, and therefore, for the good of all men, they are always anxious to perform acts which may bring about peace in the world. They are sincere friends to all living entities, and at the risk of great personal inconvenience, they are always engaged in the service of the Lord for the good of all people. Lord Vishnu is just like a great tree, and all others, including the demigods, men, siddhas, charanas, vidyadharas, and other living entities, are like branches, twigs, and leaves of that tree. By pouring water on the root of the tree, all the parts of the tree are automatically nourished. Only those branches and leaves which are detached cannot be so satisfied. Detached branches and leaves dry up gradually despite all watering attempts. Similarly, human society, when it is detached from the personality of Godhead, like detached branches and leaves, is not capable of being watered. And one attempting to do so is simply wasting his energy and resources. The modern materialistic society is detached from its relation to the Supreme Lord, and all its plans, which are being made by atheistic leaders, are sure to be baffled at every step. Yet they do not wake up to this. In this age, the congregational chanting of the holy names of the Lord is the prescribed method for waking up. Jeev Jago, Jeev Jago, in Bengali, and yes, wake up, sleeping soul. The ways and means are most scientifically presented by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and intelligent persons may take advantage of his teachings in order to bring about real peace and prosperity. Srimad Bhagavatam is also presented for the same purpose, and this will be explained more specifically later in the text. Reading the translation once again. Once in a holy place in the forest of Naimiṣāraṇya, great sages headed by the sage Shonaka assembled to perform a great 1,000-year sacrifice for the satisfaction of the Lord and his devotees. So this point is very nicely being explained here by Srila Prabhupada, how the special quality or the special characteristic of sadhus, of saintly persons, is to think of different ways, different means by which those who are not Krishna conscious can become Krishna conscious. And of course, the point being made here, and the nice example being given as well, when the branch of a tree is detached from that tree, then it will simply dry and be lifeless. So similarly, those who are disconnected with God consciousness, those who refuse to accept or to admit that there is something else, something superior in the world, they thus become disconnected not only with God or with Krishna, but we see the result of what happens when one disconnects actually with the concept of God consciousness. And the prime example is what is taking place on the planet since the last 100, 200 years especially. when we become disconnected with Krishna, who is the center of everything, we also become disconnected with nature. In other words, when we become disconnected with our spiritual nature, we also become disconnected with our material nature. We become disconnected by exploiting the natural resources of material nature to such an extent, for example, whereby today we have major ecological crisis all over the world. And we also naturally become disconnected with one another. People in the so-called advanced countries, so-called developed countries, the relationship between members of one family are very often less than ideal. Everyone has become an island on their own. Members in the family who are older, they have their own cars, they have their own television set because they have their favorite programs. People are not even talking to one another. So many things, actually. In other words, when we lose that first principle, that basic concept and principle of God consciousness, automatically we can expect and we can easily understand everything else will become derailed, will go off. And the end result, of course, is that people will be heavily covered by Maya. They won't know who they are. They won't know what the purpose of life is. And therefore, this has been the special feature which is being narrated here. I mean, since time immemorial, people in the Western countries become amazed when they hear about the Kumbh Mela. Because of course, nowadays, they have the perverted reflection of Kumbh Melas in the West. They have these big rock concerts. The subject matter in meditation is somewhat different, very different, but they have they call it rainbow gathering. You might have heard the term. Oh, there are different names. It's very popular in the Western countries, in America, also in Europe. I've attended a few rainbow gatherings. I will not describe what it is. But yeah, l'arc-en-ciel, rainbow. Yeah. Actually, there are many people who are searching, who are in these gatherings, rainbow gatherings. But generally speaking, it's like our devotees over the years actually have been going to these different, thousands, tens of thousands of young people, mostly young people, they go. And our devotees make a camp there, and especially in Europe, for example, the main organizer for this kind of very, very, maybe 100,000 people. They come for 2 weeks, if not more. So the organizer of this gathering, it's a yearly gathering, somehow came in contact with devotees and made very close friendship with Indra Maharaj. So he arranged all kinds of facilities for them, to put a nice big tent, and the devotees are cooking prasadam, and every day, distributing prasadam. They go on the stage, and also the devotees, they chant the holy name, and people in these groups, they know that the Hare Krishna people are a little far out. They have something. They're different. Of course they're different. And they have a general respect, and actually many people become very friendly with devotees and end up becoming devotees also. You know, some of our present devotees come from that kind of background. So the special feature, of course, of the such kind of massive, I mean, millions of people in India come together, as we know. They practically have to make a whole city-like arrangement with all kinds of facilities. So it's very interesting, and of course it is unknown practically to people in the West that such kind of activities that we call Kumbh Mela, and there's a reason. I mean, there are many reasons, and that is what is being described here. Those who are, Prabhupada would explain, that's the difference between a Brahmana and a Kripana. A Kripana, miserly person, he might have $1 million or crores of rupees, but he walks around in rags. Nobody knows. And he doesn't spend a paisa. He's a miserly person. Doesn't want to share it, doesn't want to spend it, even for himself. Whereas a Brahmana is broad-minded. He wants to give. Whatever he may receive, he will share. Prabhupada gave a whole lecture on this whole theme, that we as devotees are meant to develop this mentality of Brahminical mentality of very widely distributing this knowledge. The more we understand how, just like all of us, before we came to Krishna consciousness, we were lost. Most people who did not know about Krishna absolutely were lost. You know, if you don't know about Krishna, you're lost. You don't know what is the goal of life and so many things. And we know that, you know, once having come to Krishna consciousness, it brings such a relief. We are finally understanding who we are, what is the purpose of life, etc. So our acharyas explain, I'm sure you've heard it many times also, that is the foremost of all qualities of a Vaishnava. Titikshava karunika suridam sarvadehinam. Just like it's also mentioned here. He is the well-wisher of all living entities. He wants to give them an opportunity to come out, to put an end to their misery, to their suffering. And of course, the best way to do that is by giving people transcendental knowledge, isn't it? So, in other words, we are part of this very, very, very long tradition that is referred to here, even before the advent of Kali Yuga. That is the nature and the activities of transcendentalists. Prabhupada one time was explaining how there are many people, especially in India, even now, who are, for example, in the Himalayas somewhere, in some cave. We had one Dadu, elderly person, who had joined when I was in Mayapur, who came from the Himalayas actually. He was meditating for a long time. He was quite short, relatively short, I mean, maybe a little shorter than Prabhupada. And he had long matted hair that touched the floor. When he had it unbrailed, his hair was thick and touching the floor. He was sitting in his cave one day, one fine day, just like here, once upon a time. And somehow he got the Bengali version of Back to Godhead magazine, which is called Bhagavad Darshan, the Darshan of Bhagavan. He looked at it, and that very same day he left his cave because there was an address, Sridham Mayapur. So he came all the way, and I remember I was there. I was in charge of the Bhakti program, and you know, when you come out of the cave and you've been there for years with your long matted hair, it's not obvious that you're going to become a devotee. So, but he said, I want to become a devotee. I want to surrender. So that was in the long building. The what is it? I think Chakra. Yeah, Chakra building. So, anyways, we told him, you can sleep here in the veranda. The veranda was there. He slept in the veranda. The next day, he still was, you know, very serious. So there were different thoughts whether we should allow him to stay or not. Anyways, we finally told him, okay, you can stay on one condition. Your hair? You can stay, but your hair can't stay. So he went to the Ganges and found a barber, left his hair on the bank of the Ganges, and he surrendered. He became very active in the Namhata program. He would be standing on the stage and he was like in his 80s, I suppose. He was very old, but he was very active, very enthusiastic, and he would get people to get up and to chant Hare Krishna. Yeah. So he was fortunate. The point I wanted to make is that actually most people who are like him, meditating somewhere, if and that's the case for most people, they don't get an opportunity to know that there's something higher than, you know, the man. Then very often, that was the point Prabhupada was making, that most people who are practicing spiritual life, it is for their own salvation. But our mentality, and that is the mood of Prahlad Maharaj, I already know about the Mahamantra. I can chant Hare Krishna anywhere, and I'm fully happy, fully satisfied. But when I think about all these fools and rascals who are not yet chanting Hare Krishna, then that is my anxiety. That is my anxiety. So that is the proper mood and mentality. We need to, of course, we have some little understanding, some little appreciation that somehow by some great mercy, some great miracle, sometimes it's actually miracle, we have come to Krishna consciousness. But we need to cultivate or continue to deepen our appreciation of what that means, because actually 99.9% of the population in the world in Kali Yuga are in Maya. They don't even know about Krishna, isn't it? Or they may know something, but it's perverted or whatever. So that means that all of these people who are spirit souls, who are actually our brothers and sisters, you know, who belong to the same eternal family of Krishna, they're all, due to not knowing about Krishna, due to being covered by Maya, they're simply suffering in the material world. And that is the thought and meditation of saintly persons, how to give an opportunity for those who are yet not in Krishna consciousness, who have not yet received, you know, So therefore, this is what the sages means, just like here, the sages in Naimiṣāraṇya. Then we had our Goswami sages in Vrindavan. They were also discussing the same topic, And over the centuries, over the years, our various acharyas, Prabhupada was in the same mood. He started the League of Devotees in India. But there was no one to actually, it didn't happen. It wasn't the right time. Krishna wanted Prabhupada, leave the League of Devotees aside, you start International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Why just the League of Devotees in India? There's very few people who are interested because of all the false propaganda that Indian culture, Vedic culture is all backwards, everything. You go to the West, these people are really suffering. They're really in Maya. You go to the worst place, or the best place, where there's the greatest Maya. Might have to have our own watchdog later on. So that's what Prabhupada did. So the those who are actual saintly, self-realized personalities, they, I think Prabhupada mentions also, they go out of their way. They accept great challenges, take upon themselves great austerities, great trouble to bring this message of Krishna consciousness to as many people as possible. So that's one of the main reasons they're sitting in the kitchen. Anyways, it's not the kitchen. You can clean it with Kaudam. So therefore, we see one of the special features of Srila Prabhupada was that Krishna was revealing to him so many ways and so many plans by which to introduce, isn't it, this knowledge of Krishna consciousness. And of course, because Srila Prabhupada was totally surrendered to the mission of his own Guru Maharaj, which is the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, Krishna Shakti, he was given, he was empowered to actually spread Krishna consciousness very widely all over the world. So, in other words, we are connected with the same line of sadhus who received this great message of the Bhagavatam in the forest of Naimiṣāraṇya 5,000 years ago, and that same message of the Bhagavatam continues today and is attracting more and more people to its fold as well. Let me read the text once again. Once in a holy place in the forest of Naimiṣāraṇya, great sages headed by the sage Shonaka assembled to perform a great 1,000-year sacrifice for the satisfaction of the Lord and his devotees. Any comment on this?
You mentioned lords and lords devotees. Lords and devotees.
And his devotees.
Is demigods devotee means demigods, yeah?
Your question is whether devotees means demigods.
Yeah.
Demigods are also devotees. Yeah. You have something against demigods?
No.
Yeah.
That's a sacrifice, no? The demigods also that time coming is also happy. I think that one.
So this is in a general way it is being mentioned to satisfy not only the Lord, but actually very important to satisfy the Lord's devotees, as Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita. Those who claim to be my devotees are not actually my devotees, but those who are the devotees of my devotees, those who serve my devotees, those who try to please or satisfy my devotees, they are my actual devotees. So that also includes. Yes.
Maharaj, what happened to that sadhu? Now he is present or?
Oh, for many years he was, all the years I was in Mayapur, and then for many years he was there. Actually, he was already old when he joined, so after some time, like it happens to all of us, he got older. So anyways, he's no more actually now. But I remember at one point, this was in the temple, and some of the younger devotees would sometimes he was a little sometimes eccentric, just a little bit. I mean, trying to get people to dance or to chant and whatnot. So sometimes some of the younger devotees, they would tease him, and he'd get angry, and they'd like to tease him to see him getting angry, So one time, one sannyasi, I forget, sannyasi from America, he was observing the young Bengali boys teasing him, and I remember he told them, "You should stop teasing him." He says, because they were kind of making fun of him a little bit. And so this sannyasi was telling him, now you're all young. You will all become old at the same time, and then this will happen to you also. He kind of like warned them that what they're doing to him, it would come back to them. He would go, he was very strong actually, although he was very old. He was must have been a brahmachari his whole life. And there are some videos about him going back some of the days, but anyways, he was one of those rare meditators in the Himalayas who got Prabhupada's transcendental literature. We have a few more minutes. The example of Prahlad, yeah.
I was very happy that I was thinking about the world and the material world and suffering. For their liberation he was thinking. So in the neophyte study we see that getting out from the triguna is very difficult.
Getting out of the triguna is very difficult.
But the whole life is, I was thinking the whole life is going like that one. Sometimes something fighting with the gunas.
Yeah,
But how to come out from that gunas and think about the others that to elevate them. And for us elevating is very difficult, but for others to elevate them is
how to think about others and their gunas, not only stuck with our gunas. That requires purification. The more we apply the principle and the concept of Krishna consciousness, it is a system that as a result helps us to become purified in consciousness. The more attentively and diligently we apply the process, then we become more purified, and to the degree that we are purified, then we can think of others. We don't remain entangled in our petty problems, because we come to know that actually there's only 4 problems in life. Everything else is not really a problem. The problem of birth, death, old age, and disease, isn't it? So it requires that each and every individual apply himself or herself, and those who do that under proper guidance and who are serious, then the result will come. It may not be the same from one person to another. I mean, it may take more time. There's so many factors involved. But the fact is, we read about so many personalities in the Bhagavatam. It's not only about reading about people in the Bhagavatam. We also come in contact with devotees who are very much serious in practicing Krishna consciousness, who are very active in preaching in so many ways, and who are seriously applying the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, and who are very, in a more natural way, actually thinking about the welfare of others, because they're not hung up about their own problems. So that means, as quickly as possible, elevating ourselves to the mode of goodness, because that mode of goodness is what removes all anxiety, isn't it? That is the Brahmabhuta platform, which is attainable for those who are remaining strong, remaining faithfully on that platform of the mode of goodness. And then automatically that that understanding or that mood which we read about, as described here, the sages of Naimiṣāraṇya had the welfare of the people in mind. So personalities like Srila Prabhupada and those of his followers, anyone who takes seriously to Krishna consciousness, will gradually develop this kind of mentality. It won't be artificial, it will be genuine. So therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami does mention that we have to be patient also. All of these important qualities that are mentioned in the Nectar Devotion and the Nectar of Instruction, they are very important for all of us. If we follow that, then gradually we will also get the result. I think we can close for now. Jai Canto Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Pimanandi, Hare Krishna.
Bhakti Raghava Swami Maharaj ki Jai.
No prasadam.